Today's book is going to be Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. Subtitle is What We Should Know About the People We Don't Know. It's, about knowing strangers and what we do about it. So this is Malcolm Gladwell's latest entry into nonfiction writing, and it starts off, he was prompted by the Sandra Bland case, and the Sandra Bland case is where a black woman gets pulled over in a low crime area of a town by a white cop, and the white cop arrests her for really something dumb. Like he does a bunch of dumb stuff here. And then she's hung later. And she already had some suicide indicators she had tried before, but she's hung like 3 days later. She's hung herself in her cell. She didn't signal. That's why she got pulled over, and ultimately that's why she died. But there's two puzzles that come out of this. And puzzle number one is, why can't we tell when the stranger in front of us is lying to our face? And puzzle number two is, how is it that meeting a stranger can sometimes make us worse at making sense of that person than if we didn't meet them at all? So one of the answers to that above puzzle is that we default to truth. That we assume what people are telling us is true. And that's good because most of the times it totally is true. And if we lived the opposite way where we didn't default to truth, and he has some crazy examples in here of like people holding themselves up with guns in their house because the SEC is going to come kill them, and other things like that. So we don't want to live like that. Like we don't want to live like sociopaths. But that's how we'd live if we didn't default to truth. We didn't just trust the people around us that they're going to be safe and that they're telling us the truth. Now, the second answer to this puzzle is transparency, and let's get another quote of the book. It says, "Transparency is the idea that people's behavior and demeanor, the way they present themselves on the outside, provides an authentic and reliable window into the way they feel on the inside." So we feel that transparency is indeed true, that the emotions I display on my face are exactly what I'm feeling on the inside. But the truth is that's not true. So he cites a few studies about like other cultures that the facial stuff's not even close. And then I believe it's Amanda Knox case. There's a murder of her roommate, and she's weird. That's it. She's a little weird. And so she is convicted basically because they don't believe that she's displaying the emotions she should be displaying. And the actual physical evidence is so tenuous that it gets thrown out. But she spends time in jail first. So, because she bought underwear the next day, and that's weird. Of course, her house was a crime scene. So like, what is she supposed to do? Go around with them underpants? Or because the police lied to her and said, hey, you have HIV, trying to scare her into, I don't know what. But anyways, and she made a list of all the people she had slept with, and just to let them know, because that's an important thing, and trying to figure it out. And they said, no, this is her lovers. Like, she's a promiscuous lady, and this is a sex scandal. Anyway, so that's like, if you're not transparent, and really most of us aren't, then aren't as transparent as we like to think. We're not like a TV show, and that's where we get a lot of transparency ideas from, is that whatever you see on a TV show must be true. So he analyzes Friends and how exactly it's true. They're really good at being transparent, but in true life, we are not transparent almost at all. So we need to just drop that idea. So while he talks about transparency and being mismatched, so where your outside emotions aren't reflective of where you feel inside, he takes a good tangent, and I think a good tangent, into college drinking. And basically, a heavy drinker of the 1950s was 5 drinks, and that's like a warm-up today. And when you are blackout drunk, which is over, was it 0.17? We'll say 0.718, that you're not forming new memories anymore. And when you're at this, when you're drunk state, when you're at a drunk state, you are not matched. Like, you think you're feeling something, and your face is not displaying it. And the person trying to read it is also totally not even in a spot to read this at all. So he takes this and he looks at one of the sexual abuse case on a campus, and how he takes pains to not excuse that there was unwanted sexual contact there. He also takes pains to say, well, it's not quite the whole story, because basically when you're inebriated like this, you're not the normal person you would be. So you say, I'm sober, I would never do this, but when you're drunk, you might do lots of things. And saying that it's almost impossible to read somebody in this state, because you just can't. You don't know. Their inner life and their outer life is entirely divorced. And the person that they are when they're sober has nothing to do with the person they are when they're drunk. So it's at least something to think about. It's probably the biggest takeaway in the entire book, is that if you don't drink a lot, because it's stupid, you're going to do dumb stuff, which is honestly hardly revolutionary, because I think that's been some knowledge for a while. But specifically in college, if you want to avoid sexual allegations or sexual abuse, then don't drink, because it's stupid. And so after this, Gladwell looks at his final main point, which is how behaviors are coupled. This is really interesting. So this actually goes back to the police stuff with the Sandra Bland case, right? And proactive policing. So if you look at a given city, a given precinct, let's say a high crime precinct, I think it was District 144 in Kansas City, I believe it was. So if you look at that, and they actually said targeted, like where does the crime happen in this district, and they actually surveyed it, and the police were wildly wrong where they thought like the beat cop was like, oh, it's always over this spot, and it was like the low crime area. But the high crime areas are like 3 to 5% of the streets. Like literally like one street, one block is the high crime area, and the rest of the bad area of town is like nothing. Is like really low. 50% of the crime happens in a like 3 to 5% of streets in a city. So this is where proactive policing came up, and that things are coupled. So when they proactively policed this one block, you didn't move to the next street over and just do their crime there. They just stopped because it was too hard. They didn't know the people on the next street. It was too more scary on the next street, so they didn't do it just because they didn't know it. And even in the proactive policing, what they say is specifically with the Sandra Bland case is that the proactive policing studies that say this is really effective were conducted on that 3% street. Like there was a couple cops and they were in within like a couple blocks, and all they did in those couple blocks was like get people for guns, because like gun violence is crazy in the city, and specifically in this street, in this block. And that they only did it at night because that's when most of it happened. And that the people in the houses, the people that were around there, didn't think it was like an overstep because they didn't want to go out the door and get shot. As opposed to, the police officer in the Sandra Bland case says that like he's pulling people over for minor infractions on like a totally crime-free area, and all the people that did the study and the police chief that was in charge of the study and like let it be done at his precinct basically said, this is absolutely stupid. This is not how you're supposed to do. This is not what you should be doing with our information. Stop it. But they do anyways. So basically your behaviors are coupled to a certain time and place, and you will continue to repeat them, right? You're always going to eat ice cream after like 5 o'clock is when your weakness is, if it's, if no one's home, that type of thing. You will behave a certain way with certain places, and you're coupled in that way. So the final stuff is, should you read the book? So what are the takeaways? I already said the one was drinking in college. Don't drink a lot because it's stupid. The other thing that is probably good is if you want to do better at your own behavior is recognize coupling. Atomic Habits is a really good book if you want to look at more around coupling and how the things you lead up to, the things you do will lead into the same behaviors all the time. Atomic Habits by, totally forgot. Atomic Habits, I'll put the name here. You'll see it. Atomic Habits, good book. I read that in 2018. Good book. I just looked up. I don't actually have it on my shelf. Maybe I do, but I'm just not seeing it. Anyways, Atomic Habits is a good book, and if I don't have it, I need to buy it because I will read it again. So Atomic Habits talks about coupling and how your behaviors are coupled. So this book, though, he really only has a few points. He has the one about coupling, he has the one about transparency, he has the one about being mismatched in your feelings, and he has the one about, what was the first one now? The first one was default to truth. Like that's really the points, and it's like a 300 and something page book, and it's like 90% stories. So and the stories are good, they're engaging, but I really think that you could have halved the book and been like half the weight of the stories and all the time put into that, and you would have had a book that was as effective as this one at conveying his point, and it would save you some time. So if you really like Malcolm Gladwell, you should read it. If you like his style, you should read it. If you find all those stories like a little bit draining, then this is going to be another long story book. I liked it though. I'm keeping it on my shelf. I'm not taking it back to the bookstore to just take it in and trade it in. So I would say it's an interesting book to read. Don't go expecting like reams and reams of notes. There's lots of stories that just illustrate the point 3 different ways. And he looks at a lot of fairly recent court cases, ones that I had all heard about, right? Sandra Bland I'd heard about, Amanda Knox with the murder, and then there was the other one about the swimmer at a college that was convicted of sexual abuse of the woman. So we talked about those, and if you're interested in like seeing a bit beyond those, maybe that's good. Although if you are not interested in seeing beyond those, then maybe you should look at Death of Expertise, because you should look at that. And there's a review of that one as well, because you should be willing to look at those and look at opinions that you vehemently disagree with, to try and understand where the person is coming from and how they got there. So that's my recommendation for Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. Read it if you like Gladwell. If you're not sure you want a million stories, then there's like 4 points in it. And there's not a great takeaway as like how do you talk to strangers. The biggest takeaway is don't drink a lot. That's it. Have a good one. If you liked it, you can thumbs up. If you loved it, you can subscribe. Don't hit the bell. Go read and just schedule some YouTube time every week or whenever you watch. And that's it. Don't watch all the time because you got better things to do than get a notification when you should be doing other things. Have a good one.